Thanks for listening to this podcast of Trending with Timmerie. If you haven't already subscribed, please catch us wherever you love to listen to your podcast, from the Relevant Radio app to Apple, YouTube, you name it, we are there. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to go and give us a 5-star review to help other people discover the podcast. Anything you share in terms of episodes, whether it's texting it to a friend, posting on social media, helps to build up the kingdom for God, to help confront the challenging issues we face as a culture, but with joy, with hope, and with an eternal perspective where our faith collides with everyday life, bringing eternal principles to help us live our life joyfully. I love to talk here on Trending about how important it is to live liturgically within our homes, especially when we have kids, or even whether your spouse is or isn't Catholic, does or doesn't take their faith seriously. It is so important that we're celebrating some of the great feasts throughout the year, and St. Patrick's Day is one of those days that's become rather secular, but at the heart of it is a Catholic celebration of the saint known as St. Patrick. And I want to just remind you a little bit about him. We'll discuss more tomorrow, but I really want to give you a few ways how you can bring St. Patrick into your home. Growing up as a kid, I was homeschooled. Yes, you may not have known this. I don't like to identify as a homeschooler, but I was homeschooled. Anyways, I digress. We had an incredible neighbor next door, and every St. Patrick's Day she made so special for all of us, and it's become one of our favorite holidays in our home. And I'm so excited now that I have a little kid and nieces and nephews. I started, celebrating and doing some of these things with my niece last year, of helping them to expand their imagination behind both St. Patrick and our faith, as well as, ideas such as hidden treasure and leprechauns. I remember my next door neighbor, we'd show up at our house for dinner every St. Patrick's Day. We'd have these big, massive feasts, and there would be little leprechaun footprints all over the house, and there would be, little messes and mischief throughout the house that the leprechauns had done things to cause chaos when they visited, and there would be little piles of buried hidden treasure of chocolate gold, fun things that you can do with the kids, and then sit down and talk to them about who St. Patrick is, a great saint who liberated Ireland after, at 16, being taken to Ireland as a slave, and was later returned to Ireland and converted Ireland. This is why St. Patrick, who himself isn't Irish, is known and celebrated among the Irish people, as is his feast day. It's a day to celebrate our faith and the tradition of feasting behind our faith. And some of my favorite ways to do so is to eat what we ironically consider the St. Patrick's Day feast of the poor man's food, of soda bread, corned beef and cabbage, and potatoes. And it's ironic because if we really tie this in, we could talk to our kids about how the poor man's food that we eat, that we celebrate as this great feast, we eat the poor man's food because we are poor without Christ, and how the Irish people, prior to the preaching and evangelization of St. Patrick, were poor. They were void of Christ in their lives until one man was willing, even in the midst of having been taken captive and made a slave as a teenager, was willing to go back to Ireland and evangelize and share the good news of our Lord Jesus Christ. A pretty incredible story. And with everything from dyeing all your food green to, I remember one of my favorite tricks that our neighbor used to do is she would pour all of us a nice, beautiful goblet of apple cider. And that apple cider, she would put Pop Rocks in it and a little bit of green food coloring. And so when the apple cider would go in, it would bubble up, and she'd, say, "Oh my goodness, the leprechauns got to something else." But it was so much fun. It made me fall in love for a moment with our faith and to have a little bit of imagination. And even things such as the footprints of the leprechauns leading to treasure. Gold is given to Christ at his birth. It's one of the 3 gifts given by the 3 wise men. There's so many times we can make with gold being a symbol of royalty. Christ is king over us. And again, incorporating all of those fun green foods. Maybe it's one day if your kids don't eat vegetables where you can get them to eat a lot of vegetables and be really excited about it.